Welcome to the best of the Earthshot Prize Innovation Summit 2024. I'm Jennifer Zapasaja. Founded by His Royal Highness Prince William, the Earthshot Prize is a global environmental challenge that aims to repair and regenerate the planet by helping to discover and scale solutions to climate change. This year's summit brought together policymakers, global business leaders, and climate activists to put a spotlight on the solutions that could help address the world's biggest environmental challenges. NBA superstar Joel Embiid spoke on the need to invest in the youth of his home continent of Africa.
We keep going back to infrastructures, not just in sports, education, health. I think, mentors. I think, those are some of the keys. Role models, like Masai, has been a role model, especially for me. Being in this situation, like for a long time, I've always wanted to do, all I cared about is, like helping people. And, since I became a father, that became even more amplified because I look at my kids, I look at the legacy I want to leave, I want them to understand, the world, they have everything, but growing up, we didn't have everything. But I want them to understand that, like, that's not, in other countries, where we grew up is not that way. So I think, the focus on youth, infrastructures, mentorship, I think is a big deal because it's helped me a lot.
Masai, same question to you. You mentioned the youth, you mentioned women. What is needed, to help our continent flourish and to help the youth flourish and to help young women flourish?
Inside the continent, leadership needs to be better. I think outside the continent, the diaspora are doing an incredible job, like affecting. You don't have to do big things. Yeah, people sometimes think you have to go back and do grand things. You can start like little. And I want people to actually think of Africa as a place of investment. I know sometimes it's not that straightforward, but there are unbelievable people that you can work with. There are many people, I think, in our circles, in our world, like in different aspects of life that you can actually work with in Africa. There are incredible countries that you can go to. I'm going to re-emphasize it again. Where every other continent is getting older and Africa is getting younger. There's something there. Yes, there's something that will change, and we have to pay attention to that. To say 1 out of every 4 people is going to be African by 2050, let's go back and really think about that. And think about the talent that comes from there.
How have you approached the work with local communities, and why are they important to your work?
Well, we've seen what a good mayor can do in a great city like New York, right? And I think in COSA 500, we've had the chance to see what good mayors in a 4th and 5th class municipalities in countries like the Philippines can do. They can pass legislation, they can convince fishers that following these rules will actually pay off for them in the future. They can make conservation a priority in their annual plans and their budgets. And then, as we've seen in Honduras, we can also see how they can come together and actually ask the national government to change legislation so that it's the small-scale fishers that are prioritized in the nearshore waters. So there's a lot that can happen. And we've seen mayors grow into this in different ways. They come at it from different paths. For some, it's personal because their father was a fisherman, or that they've seen what devastation a typhoon can cause in their community. For others, it's being brought in by their peers. So we have alliances of mayors from neighboring towns that have come together and actually cooperate with each other because somebody had pulled them in from their neighbors. And then lastly, I think, and this is really what we're hoping will happen with COSA 500, is that they feel like they're part of something bigger.
Maya, I want to turn to you because you're an ambassador for Oceana, and one of their taglines in protecting the ocean is save the ocean, feed the world. So it's very much about this issue of not just protecting the planet, but protecting the people who are here. So how have you seen Oceana's work protect people and the planet?
Yeah, it's interesting because we can't think those are separate things, you know. Once we protect people, we protect the planet. Once we protect the planet, we protect people. It's unity, right? We see ourselves as individuals, but truly, we're all together all the time in this whole universe. So with Oceana, it's, you know, we've been two very interesting law changes that we were able to conquer. One in south of Brazil was the bottom trawling, and that allowed small-scale fishers to find again lobsters and red snappers, which was being completely depleted. And with that law, which was passed by the Supreme Court at the very end of the fight, it also allowed for, of course, less of an impact of CO2 once you stop bottom trawling. Also saving petroleum use. So a lot of good things happen when you can tap into and create one big law of protection. Same thing in Peru when we were able to, well, they were able, our beautiful team of Oceana in Peru, they were able to create the law and pass the law of protecting the 5 mile close to the coast of industrial fishing that allowed the artisanal fishers to go out and fish, and that protected food and that area and protected food and families. I think it was 40,000 families that now can actually go out and fish and have what to eat. And I think we do say in Oceana that, you know, you could have 1 billion meals a day of seafood if you actually protect it and allow the ocean to heal, because it's unhealthy right now. But that is the potential. And I think, you know, as food is a major issue in right now in our near future, scarcity, to not protect something that nature is giving us. And once we deplete it, it's saying, if you give us a break, we will make sure we, you know, get healthy again very soon. It's crazy not to do it.
These finalists are breaking down barriers. They are inventing the future we all need to accelerate towards. But they need us all to make a change in how we invest, how we take risks, how we make bold, collaborative moves that shape the future faster. This is a call for urgency at a new level. We need to speed solutions to scale if by 2030 we will be able to say to one another that we successfully protected 30% of oceans, nature and water, and lowered emissions by over 40%. Business as usual is no longer an option. We need new forms of blended capital to help take game-changing ideas to scale. We need corporations to invest in the solutions of the future in their supply chains. We need markets to reward these incredible innovators. Together, we hold the pen of future history books.
Coming up, more from the Earthshot Prize Innovation Summit 2024. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to the Earthshot Prize Innovation Summit 2024. I'm Jennifer Zavasaja. The Earthshot Prize supports solutions to the harm brought about by the climate crisis. Earthshot Prize winners are guided by global partners and leaders on how to accelerate progress and shake up the status quo. Here's some of their advice.
Politicians have the ability in this, this football match that is the climate environment, where they can change the rules that will either speed up or slow down the game and either cause more goals to be scored or not. And one of the things that I track consistently is the speed at which we remove fossil fuel subsidies. Because not only are those incentives $7 trillion worth in entirely the wrong place, but that represents a loss of otherwise investment that we could be putting into alternatives. So that's something I keep a close eye on. as well as, of course, the trajectory for fossil fuels generally, which we must bring to an end point. The second that I'm interested in is CBAMs, carbon border adjustments, because again, we need to properly price carbon in our economies. I do think those are things that could speed up the goal scoring, but the one thing I'll also say is politicians are not the only players on the field. So every single person in this room, regardless of how fast governments are moving, can still make a difference. So do not be disheartened by the speed of the game.
By the slow speed. But that is what the Earthshot Prize is all about accelerating this. I also wanted to ask Wanjira if you would come in on this question also, because policies are important, but they will not occur if the almighty dollar is not behind them. So what do you track in terms of investment?
The role and the beauty of nature. We have literally one currency at the moment, which is carbon, but we know that forests, and especially forests on my continent, play such a huge role in keeping our planet alive, and we don't value the ecosystem services that they provide: water, pollination, soil, everything that keeps us alive. But we undervalue nature. So policies that continue to incentivize the protection of green spaces and incentivize the creation of new ones, I track.
And we look around this room, and there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of optimism. Yet out there, there's a whole different world for many of us. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear of crisis, of despair. How can we use the collective power and message of the Earthshot Prize as a platform to foster hope in the communities and young people that most need it today?
The best of life and the best opportunities actually are at the end of your comfort zone. Beyond that horizon we don't see. Don't be afraid to be on that horizon, because there is where the true opportunities are going to happen. I used to have one guy, Robert Egger, 30 years ago, a person very important in my life, a food fighter. He said, in terms of social change and philanthropy, that it seems that philanthropy was always about the redemption of the giver, when philanthropy must be about the liberation of the receiver. Let's start doing things to give dignity to the voiceless. Let's start making sure that we don't feel pity for the people, but we give them our respect, showing up there, creating opportunity, creating your ideas into real agents of change. I am President Rest, and I endorse this message.
I want to stress that, of course, the wrong tree in the wrong place can undoubtedly do a lot more harm than good. But it's worth noting that is the same for everything that has ever existed. If you stick a toothbrush in the wrong place, it'll do more harm than good, so I'm told. Of course, we are not going to be getting out of this by engineering our way out of it. This doesn't tackle the underlying threat, the underlying challenge that we're facing, which is ultimately the inequitable distribution of wealth on our planet. We have a small number of people with a huge, massive environmental footprints, but then we've also got billions of people living day to day, trapped in an economy where they have very few non-extractive alternatives. But there's a growing body of research that suggests that these are the people that actually hold our greatest opportunity for hope. Because if we can redistribute the wealth of this planet towards those land stewards, they are the ones who can find the sustainable options, and then in time, the regenerative options that help to build a world in which we can all thrive. Global restoration is not about excluding people and securing nature. It's about finding and empowering the millions of local land stewards, the indigenous populations, the farmers, the communities who are the stewards of nature on our planet. And that is the mission of Restore, a free online digital platform to support the movement where any local landowner can draw around their land and get free information about the carbon and water and biodiversity. Just like Desta, this example in Ethiopia, where you can see the huge footprint of coffee production as forests have been removed. But as you zoom in, it looks like that forest is pretty much intact. And that's because that's exactly what it is. Instead of removing the forest, they plant the trees underneath the canopy of this beautiful, intact rainforest, which traps water and nutrients, so those trees grow really well without the need for fertilizers and irrigation, which means they make more profit. And when nature is the profitable option, you know you can't stop it from recovering across landscapes. That is why all the farmers in the nearby region are allowing trees to return on their ecosystems so that they can have more profitable coffee production.
Each one of you I know wakes up knowing that you're in a race against time to use your platform and your influence to unlock the future we want. And here's what I know. When you leave here now, you're going to run around the whole of New York negotiating, agreeing, pitching, pushing, risk-taking, leading, and it is exhausting. And sometimes the no's and the inertia and the resistance you meet, they can sap the soul. In the dark of the night, how many of us have quietly held grief and fear when we ask ourselves that question, is what we are doing enough? So as you prepare to leave us, we'd like to put some wind in your sails, oxygen in your lungs, and optimism in your hearts, because today, 15 new Earthshot finalists are launched to the world. And they join a family of 45 past winners and finalists, and all of whom have gone on to do so much incredible work and deliver meaningful change.
Coming up, more from the Plaza Hotel and the Earthshot Prize Innovation Summit 2024. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to the best of the Earthshot Prize Innovation Summit 2024. I'm Jennifer Zapasacha. The solutions the Earthshot Prize helps to fund need to scale and scale quickly. I spoke with a group of climate leaders to see the impact they could have with access to capital to help their solutions scale.
Climate and water are intimately linked. So number one to scale, awareness. Number two, policy. Because it is risk averse, and it should be, right? Water and access to clean water is public health 101. And so that providing that access requires trusted infrastructure, trusted technologies. And so right now, there's not an incentive for a lot of big water companies or infrastructure operators to change to a new technology. Because we are selling into the market that we are, right? It's slow adoption. And so financial investors are largely allergic to what we do. And so raising awareness, bringing in the capital, and seeing some more policy incentives to bring in new technologies like EcoCycle to solve some of these really pressing challenges.
As a 2024 Earthshot winner, I mean, have you experienced some of those challenges as well that Oriana was just outlining there?
Yeah, certainly. I think one of the key challenges, as our other colleagues here have said, is how can we funnel more finance into these sectors at the scale that is necessary for them to be done. So that has definitely been a challenge, but what we have been trying to do for that is demonstrate some key milestones towards definitely de-risking our entire sector as a whole. So in the next 12 to 15 months, we plan to transfer over $100 million to farmers and local communities around the world, while also demonstrating that our business, Bhumitra, can be extremely profitable at the same time. Being extremely profitable while also transferring huge amounts of climate finance back to the communities. But this is just the start. We want to use that as the proving point to allow financial stakeholders from around the world to say, yes, we can invest in this and we can take this to the gigaton scale.
Matt, Gary, are you too optimistic that, I mean, Oriana and it were just noting, of course, a lot of the challenges that they are just experiencing. As you've been on this journey, are you optimistic that some of these barriers to scaling for founders like themselves and like yourselves will be broken down?
Yes, and I can really relate to everything you're saying. You know, when we had an event in 2012 to celebrate our first 1 million people reached, President Clinton came, and he's been a big booster of this work and a supporter of of water.org all along, and he looked at the model and he instantly recognized that it was going to work. To exactly what they're saying, we needed to prove it over and over and over again. And so what he said, he pulled me aside. He said, "You just got to run these numbers up. You got to run them up." He said, "You got to make it undeniable." And so that's what we spent the last decade plus doing, because I don't think either of us mentioned that these loans pay back at over 98%. And so think about that for a second. These are the most vulnerable. 90% of our borrowers are women. These women, who are among the most vulnerable on the planet, financially speaking, are paying these loans back at 98+%. And this is repeated. We've done over 13 million of these loans. So these are very real numbers. And it just speaks. It's emotional for us because it's so heroic. These women who are in, they're in a failed market, right? And they're the victims of a failed market. And it's really about philosophically looking at people rather, as Gary said, rather than a charity case or to be solved, but as human beings and as customers and citizens. And this method has proved that if we just nudge the market towards them and get out of the way, people want to solve their own problems.
We have gone from the paradigm of everybody in the world is so poor and equally poor that everybody needs a charity solution, and that was the paradigm. Now we've gotten to the point where we can actually provide not just a break even, but we can actually use capital to help them and provide the financial returns that the market needs. So we finally have line of sight on that 1.5 trillion. You guys know how much capital is out there to be invested, right? If the market is sending you the right signal. And so if we can actually use that signal with what we're doing, and frankly, looking at investing in businesses like yours, entrepreneurs around the world that are solving this as well, having the capital to deploy rapidly to scale those solutions, and then going to the capital markets and providing those financial returns, then absolutely we can solve it. We solved this problem 100 years ago here, in the US. There's no reason why we can't solve it around the world.
The philosopher Timothy Morton said, "In a time of climate change, ecological collapse, and social transformation, art allows us to see hard truths without being destroyed by them." 2 weeks ago in Venice, I premiered a production called Salt of the Earth. It was an act of storytelling created through a deep collaboration with scientists, activists, and local initiatives. Salt of the Earth shone a light on an overlooked and disregarded but vital ecosystem, salt marshes. Globally, we've lost nearly half of our historical salt marshes. In Venice, only 1/6 remain. Working with scientists, with local experts for the last year was humbling and empowering and vital to create a piece of art whose objective is to help the climate emergency resonate both personally and collectively, and to foster a sense of shared responsibility.
And it's not just about the powerful storytelling, it's also about the means by which we tell those stories in an industry that is heavy on resources. And to that end, I'm very proud to announce today that I'm helping with Sir David Attenborough's grandson, Will, to champion actively the Green Rider. And it's an initiative that brings together actors and producers in finding solutions to the sustainability issues that we face within our industry. And by adding a green clause to our contracts, actors can ensure climate action is prioritized on set and on screen at every stage of the production process. So working with our agents, working with sustainability experts, we can help isolate the areas of most importance and impact and develop smart, scalable solutions and kickstart systemic progress across our industry, from the studios to the guilds, unions, and academies.
And that's all from the Earthshot Prize Innovation Summit 2024. You can find more on the Bloomberg Terminal and also on Bloomberg.com. I'm Jennifer Zabasaja, and this is Bloomberg.